What a journey Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor has been. As I continue revisiting games that were released in 2014, I knew I had to cover one of the best games from that year. Much like my experience with Wolfenstein, which I covered back in May, Shadow of Mordor was uncharted territory for me. I remember IGN giving this game a glowing 9.3 out of 10, and with my birthday coming up, I knew I had to have it. Even though I hadn't seen Lord of the Rings back then, it didn't stop me from diving headfirst into the brutal Arkham-style combat and the groundbreaking Nemesis system that blew my 14-year-old mind. While some elements didn't fully click with me due to my unfamiliarity with the lore, I still rolled credits and enjoyed the ride. Fast forward to 2024, and I knew I wanted to revisit Shadow of Mordor to celebrate its 10th anniversary, which was celebrated on September 30th. Unfortunately, my plan to release a video around that time hit some snags, which all started with a decision about where to play. On Xbox. Let's just say I was a little too ambitious with this video. Unlike Wolfenstein, I don't actually have the platinum for Shadow of Mordor. For some reason, I thought it would be a great idea to go for both the achievements and the platinum, combining them into one video. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what I was thinking. Getting things started, I began a playthrough on my Xbox since I was beginning from scratch there. Once I was halfway through, I loaded up my Shadow of Mordor save on PlayStation, expecting to pick up where I left off in 2014. To my surprise, the most recent save was from 2016, but it had just over an hour of progress. At that point, I didn't want to completely restart the game on a different console, so I made the tough call to focus solely on getting all the achievements on Xbox. However, I ran into some significant issues, not with the game itself, but with the Xbox ecosystem. But we'll get into that later. For now, let's dive into the journey ahead, as this game has 74 achievements to cover. As always, let's start with the story.
That is a perfect swing for killing chicken. Wouldn't want to hurt you.
The story kicks off at the Black Gate of Mordor, where we meet our protagonist, Talion. The early moments serve as a tutorial, with Talion sparring with his son, Dirhael, and sneaking up on his wife, Lorith, in a playful introduction to the stealth mechanics. But things get dark quickly as Sauron's forces launch an attack led by three captains: the Hammer of Sauron, the Tower of Sauron, and the Black Hand of Sauron. Talion, Lorith, and Dirhael are brutally sacrificed in a ritual meant to summon the wraith Elf Lord Celebrimbor. Instead, Celebrimbor merges with Talion, banishing him from death and kicking off our adventure in Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. Game of the Year Edition. Following an incredible opening, I was surprised at how quickly the game threw me into the open world.
So, we missed one of you at Narcos, eh? An easy mistake to fix.
I pressed on with the story, learning how to dominate an Uruk for intel on captains.
The world has changed. Nothing makes sense.
Nothing has changed.
This ties directly into the game's revolutionary Nemesis System, which plays a huge role in both key story moments and in earning certain achievements. Using this intel, I took down my first captain, Gimup the Slaver, slowly weakening Sauron's forces and earning my first rune. From here, the story opens up, allowing me to tackle quests in any order. Each character you meet has their own set of missions that either aid in building an army to stop the Black Hand, or reveal more about Celebrimbor's past. My first set of missions was for Gollum, where we followed his tracks to recover artifacts that restored parts of Celebrimbor's memory. In one of these early missions, we found an heirloom, giving us a flashback to Celebrimbor's days as an Elf Lord. Next, I met Ratbag the Coward, an orc offering to help bring us closer to the Black Hand, on the condition that we help him climb the ranks. After assisting in one of his duels, Ratbag's power increased, making him a captain in Sauron's army. After that, I worked with an old ally, Hirgon, to free some slaves. One of his missions introduced me to the grog poisoning mechanic, though I only used it once outside of that quest. The next key moment in the story came when I started killing war chiefs, so Ratbag could rise to power. This also gave me the opportunity to work on some achievements related to the Nemesis system, but I'll save those details for later. The one achievement I can mention here is taking down all 5 war chiefs before any Uruk could replace them. I made sure to defeat 4 before completing Ratbag's final mission. Here, we find Ratbag strung up for killing a war chief's bodyguard, who happened to be his twin brother.
Just make sure you show up to take the place of the dead war chief.
But the war chief's not dead.
I'm going to go kill him!
Good plan!
We storm the stronghold to eliminate the war chief, earning achievements for both taking out all 5 without any replacements, and promoting Ratbag to a war chief. In our final mission for Gollum, his trail leads us to another artifact. In this flashback, it's revealed that Celebrimbor was responsible for creating the Rings of Power. As someone who recently got into the Lord of the Rings universe, this was really cool to see. Shortly after this revelation, I teamed up with Hirgon to destroy a statue of Sauron and draw out the Black Captain. Clearing some Uruk patrols, we push a grot cart to the statue and detonate it, sending a clear message to the Black Hand.
To these outcasts, it seems I am less of a monster in death than I was in life.
This gets the attention of the Hammer, who arrives and executes Ratbag. We confront him, and this turns out to be a surprisingly easy boss fight. Building up my combo and performing an execution was all it took to bring down the Hammer.
We have defeated the Hammer of Sauron, but the Black Hand and the Tower remain.
This unlocks the second explorable location in Shadow of Mordor, which was a refreshing change with its greenery and wildlife. It's here that I meet Lethario's mother, Queen Marin, who holds additional artifacts for Celebrimbor. After finding a mithril hammer and watching another flashback, we escape a cave and meet Torvin, a beast hunter seeking a new hunting partner. In exchange, he promises to point us to another artifact. Tempting as it was, I stuck with missions for the Queen. Seeking to break his curse, Talion's only option is to defeat the Black Hand and claim Mordor for himself. This seems like an impossible task, but I quickly learned a critical ability to build an orc army. Testing this at a nearby fortress, we find yet another artifact, revealing more of Celebrimbor's story. In our final mission for Marwyn, I brand a war chief, adding more strength to my army. We find Queen Marin in a weakened state, but things aren't as they seem. We break her staff, lifting her curse, and Talion concludes that she has been possessed by the powerful Saruman. Wait, future me here. I know that's not how you pronounce the name. It's not Saruman, it's Saruman. I hear you guys typing away at your keyboards as I speak. I don't know how I let that slide when I was recording, so I apologize. She gives us the location of the Black Hand, ending her storyline.
Istari. With the power of the ring, he could have built a great army to challenge the Dark Lord.
This starts another lengthy objective where we must brand 5 war chiefs. It's trickier than simply killing them, but after an hour, all 5 were under my control. Although we finished Marwyn's quests, her daughter Lethario still has a couple of missions. We search for an elixir to heal Marwyn, clearing a camp of Uruks to retrieve it. Lethario also finds a message detailing a gathering at a fishing village. She plans an ambush, but is unfortunately captured by the tower. Although she holds her own, she's badly injured. We find her and carry her to safety while battling Uruks along the way, wrapping up her storyline.
Lethariel and her men will not survive Mordor. They must leave or perish.
There's only one more set of missions to take care of, and these involve Torvin. Through these missions, we learn about the beasts of Mordor. It becomes easier to dominate a Caragor, we take down a Grog in the wild, and even a legendary one.
I hope that Torvin finds his way home now that his hunt is over.
These missions were nice, adding some lighthearted fun to the mix. With everything complete, we sail to the Black Gate and face the Black Hand. In a battle against my nemesis, our armies clashed, but they didn't stand a chance. Inside, we confront the tower, which leads to another easy boss fight. All we have to do is stealth drain him a few times. Nothing exciting, and with a generous time limit, it wasn't long before the tower fell.
You said we were cursed. You deceived me.
Before going after the Black Hand, we collect our final artifact, revealing the deception behind the creation of the rings. In our last push, we storm the Black Gate, eliminate the talons of the Black Hand, and finally, confront him. In the game's final flashback, we witness Sauron's rise to power and Celebrimbor's final moments. Sauron possesses the Black Hand's body, leading to the final boss fight, which, unfortunately, is just a series of QTEs. It was disappointing when I first played it in 2014, and it still disappoints after all these years. However, with the Black Hand defeated, Talion gazes upon Mount Doom, declaring his intention to forge a new ring, thus ending the story for Shadow of Mordor. While the story had its high points, I'm not the biggest fan of how it ultimately played out. Now, I'm not a massive Tolkien head, so any changes to the lore or timeline flew right over my head. But as I played through the game's 20 missions, I was left unsatisfied in the end. For every moment we got of Talion being sympathetic, it's followed by an underwhelming boss fight or a strange shift in character motivation. Does this detract from the game? Not entirely. This is one of those open world games where the stories I created outside the main narrative were the real highlights. This takes us through the rest of the achievement list, and that starts with the side missions. Across Udin and the Sea of Nirnen, there are multiple missions tied to each of Talion's weapons, his sword, dagger, and bow. Each mission comes with a challenge that rewards Mirian, which can be used to unlock more general upgrades like increased health, focus, or additional arrows, to name a few. The first mission I completed was for my dagger, where I had to stealth kill 5 enemies without being detected. Next was one for my bow, where I took out all the archers. And finally, a sword mission that had me defeat 50 enemies in a warrior horde. Another set of side missions involves liberating slaves from the Uruks. Across the map, fist icons indicate groups of slaves that need to be freed. After liberating them, outcast missions are unlocked where more slaves need to be freed from strongholds and camps, and I earned an achievement after completing my first one.
Couldn't do it. I just couldn't dig another latrine for those filthy creatures.
These side missions took a while to get through since there were 24 outcast missions, but as I explored the open world, I made sure to unlock them as I went. Some weapon missions were also locked behind specific upgrades or tied to story progression, so they ended up being some of the last achievements I got in the base game. While working through these missions, I also completed a vendetta mission. Essentially, you're tasked with killing a captain who had previously killed another player. At least, that was the original intent. In 2021, the servers for Shadow of Mordor were quietly shut down, leading to some concern over whether this achievement would still be obtainable. Fortunately, in a smart move that more developers should really adopt, the trophy was patched to work offline. All I had to do now was defeat a captain that had killed me at some point, marking them as a revenge target. I unlocked this achievement fairly early when I took down Mugluck Metalbeard.
Here is your end.
As I progressed and unlocked more upgrades, I completed all 10 dagger missions, sword missions, and all 24 outcast missions. I also completed the bow missions, but I ran into one of Xbox's issues when the achievement didn't show up. It wasn't until I restarted my console that the achievement finally appeared in the Xbox hub. Unfortunately, this wasn't the only time it happened. With all the Mirian I'd been collecting, I was consistently upgrading Talion, and one of the upgrade paths was unlocking rune slots for my weapons. Initially, each weapon starts with just 1 rune slot, but with enough Mirian, I unlocked additional slots, earning achievements after unlocking 2 for my bow, 3 for my sword, and 4 for my dagger. Next up, let's talk about the collectibles and challenges scattered throughout the open world. There are 2 types of collectibles, artifacts and Ithilden. The artifacts provide lore through memories we can listen to, while the Ithilden pieces form sections of an image. Unlike most games, I didn't need a guide for these. Around the map are forged towers, and in classic old Ubisoft game design, we climb them, revealing a section of the map. These towers are spread across Udin and the Sea of Nurnen, so I activated them whenever I was around.
Mordor takes Eldar shape.
With all collectible locations marked, it was easy to track them down. While completing story missions and exploring the world, I naturally stumbled upon these collectibles, earning achievements when I collected and listened to 25% of the artifacts, and collected 50% of the Ithilden. One night, as I was nearing the end of the story, I decided to wrap up the collectibles by finding 100% of the Ithilden and collecting all the artifacts, listening to their associated memories.
And now you bestow upon me your greatest honor.
In addition to collectibles, there are two types of challenges to complete: survivalist and hunting challenges. The survivalist challenges are simple. Just harvest different herbs, plants, and fungi found throughout the world. These serve as the game's health pickups, and I wish this system had been expanded a bit. Maybe having a pouch to store them for later use in battle would have added some extra depth. Like the collectibles, these plants are easy to spot thanks to the minimap, and I completed my first challenge shortly after entering Udin. There are 10 survivalist challenges in total, so I kept an eye out for the specific plants I needed and harvested them as I came across them. After gathering some pipeweed here and some blue milk there, I completed all the survivalist challenges around the same time I finished collecting everything. Hunting challenges, however, were a bit tough. For these, I had to hunt down the wildlife that roams Mordor. Like the survivalist challenges, there are 10 of these, and the first 4 were relatively easy. After that, the remaining challenges required story progress, as I had to hunt down ghouls and a grog, which didn't show up until later. Tracking down some of these creatures was tricky, and without upgrades, they were also tough to kill, especially the grog. But I managed to finish them off, completing the last challenge by taking down the horned grog after some missions with Torben. Mordor is filled with opportunities to unleash carnage on unsuspecting Uruks and captains. Camps and strongholds are littered with environmental hazards like fire, Morgai fly nests, or caged Caragors, all of which can be used to our advantage. Whenever I found myself in a tight spot, there was always something nearby that I could weaponize, and watching the gameplay itself in these situations was always satisfying. One of the first achievements I unlocked was a straightforward combat one, earned by striking an enemy from above while being 60 feet high. As I roamed the map hunting for captains and getting into fights, I had opportunities to free 5 caged Caragors, make 20 Uruks flee by dropping Morgai fly nests, burn 50 Uruks with my detonate ability, and attract Caragors with bait 5 times. But the most frustrating challenge was burning vengeance. For this, I had to perform an execution on a flaming berserker. This enemy type first appeared during Ratbag's final mission, and I thought it would be the perfect time to tackle this achievement. Getting the berserker on fire wasn't the hard part. The difficulty came from executing him. At this point in the game, I hadn't unlocked upgrades that build my combo meter faster or allowed me to perform multiple executions in quick succession. There were also times when I performed an execution on the wrong enemy and missed my window to perform it on the berserker. As a result, I spent close to an hour trying to knock out this achievement when everything finally lined up and I got this done. Throughout the video, I've been hinting at the Nemesis System, and now it's finally time to dive in. This is the feature Shadow of Mordor is best known for. In both Udin and the Sea of Nurnen, there are 20 captains and 5 war chiefs that you can either kill or brand. At first, the Nemesis system starts with a blank slate, but as you gather intel from Uruks or slaves, you learn more about Sauron's army, such as their strengths and weaknesses. This intel is crucial, not only for some achievements, but also to make fights easier. The variety here is staggering, and once you get used to the game's systems and how they tie into the Nemesis system, it creates a truly unique gameplay experience. For example, you might encounter a captain immune to stealth attacks, but has a fear of fire or Caragors. Or you could face a war chief immune to all your attacks, making for a serious challenge. This system is also dynamic. Another captain might ambush you in the middle of a fight. The chaos and unpredictability that the Nemesis system creates is unmatched, and it's a shame this mechanic hasn't made its way into more games. WB just had to patent this. Anyway, let's move on to the achievements. The earliest one I unlocked came shortly after I learned how to poison Grog. The Nemesis system spawns various missions like ambushes, duels between captains, or feasts. For an achievement, I had to poison a captain at his own feast. It took a few tries since I got caught a couple of times, but once I laid the trap and found a good hiding spot to watch it unfold, the achievement popped.
Did you shrug in it?
I also earned a few achievements after taking down some war chiefs during the story. One in particular was Zog Painlover. I decided to knock out 2 birds with 1 stone since this war chief had 2 bodyguards I needed to kill before drawing him out. With the knowledge of his strengths and weaknesses, I showed up on a Caragor, exploiting his fear. After defeating him, I ran into a small issue. The achievements didn't pop. I was confused seeing that I did everything right, and after a 2-minute wait, the achievements finally appeared. However, this issue became more common as I progressed through the game. Another mission I participated in was a recruitment power struggle. Occasionally, a captain will go on a recruitment mission, and during one of these, I helped a captain survive, only to kill him and his followers afterward.
How many Uruks do you command in day?
A few more achievements introduced me to mechanics within the Nemesis system that I really liked and found useful later. One was the death threat system. After dominating an Uruk, I can send a death threat to a captain or war chief, increasing their power level and the likelihood of them dropping an epic rune. I sent a death threat to Radanak the Clever and defeated him shortly after.
Stop this play!
Branding also became a key part of the game. After learning how to brand enemies, I had to brand a captain during combat, which was tricky but manageable.
Cowardly man-filth! Run off! What?
Another achievement required me to brand 5 bodyguards of a war chief and turn them against him in battle. Back in Udin, I found a war chief named Pushkrimp Scar Artist who already had 2 bodyguards. After branding them, I went after 3 other captains, initiating them as Pushkrimp's bodyguards. Once all 5 were branded, I started the mission and turned his bodyguards against him when he was drawn out. During this process, I did get killed by a random Uruk named Brog, who then became a captain. This presented the perfect opportunity. After finishing the last achievement, I made him a bodyguard of a war chief and then killed the war chief, instantly promoting Brog to his place. Once he was in power, I quickly popped his head for another achievement. While working on other achievements, I came across one that required starting a riot by commanding a war chief to attack another. Since I needed all 5 in the Sea of Nirnen, I returned to Udin, branded a war chief, and commanded him to start a riot. Unfortunately, the achievements didn't pop. I don't know why this was happening in the first place, but it did register that I earned the achievement. The last base game achievement I want to discuss is related to obtaining a level 25 rune. I ended up getting this during the Bright Lord DLC where things were a bit easier, but there is a process to collecting runes. As I mentioned before, after killing a captain or war chief, they drop a rune, and the level depends on several factors. The biggest is their power level, which you can check at any time. You can also get additional points if you kill a war chief, if it's a revenge kill, you know their weakness, exploit their fears, or issue a death threat and kill set target. In the DLC, the captains and war chiefs start at a high power level, so it was much easier to get a level 25 rune here. I finally got it after killing a level 24 captain and exploiting his weakness, which gave me the extra point needed. There is one more achievement from the base game, but that deserves its own section. For now, let's move on to the DLC.
I do not have time for another one of your hunts, Master Dwarf.
Ah, but this is your hunt, Captain.
We begin with Lord of the Hunt. In this DLC, Talion teams up with Torvin to track down and tame the beasts of Mordor, all in the fight against the Beastmaster war chiefs. As the name would suggest, the focus here is on Mordor's creatures, and we quickly learn how to tame new ones to take down war chiefs. After the initial introduction where we tame the newly introduced Karagath, we're free to tackle the rest of the story. Before diving in, I decided to knock out 25 Karagath stealth kills. Unfortunately, I had to put this beast down. The next mission teaches me how to bait ghouls. Baiting multiple mounds, I summoned a ghoul matron and set it ablaze using my bow's special ability. With that skill learned, it wasn't long before I baited 10 of their mounds. From there, I hunted down the various war chiefs using Karagaths, Graugs, and ghouls, leaving only one standing. Before finishing the main story, I want to talk about the side missions in the DLC. There are 4 of them, and completing them unlocks the Blazing Steed ability for the Karagath. These missions aren't too difficult and are actually a lot of fun. I mean, after all, who doesn't want to take down Uruks with a Grog's Vomit? It was during the 4th mission when I unlocked the Blazing Steed ability and activated it before I even finished the mission. In another mission with Torvin, I learned how to brand ghouls, eventually having 20 of them branded at once. With the swarm of ghouls under my command, I dispatched them to take down a Graug. Now that I knew how to brand ghouls, I needed to dominate a Karagath, a Wretched Graug, and a Spitter Ghoul simultaneously for another achievement. The Karagath and Graug were easy to dominate with my Shadow Mount ability, but the Ghoul proved tricky. However, after spamming my Wraith Flash enough times, I finally dominated a Spitter Ghoul. Before wrapping up the DLC, there were a couple more achievements tied to Graugs and Captains that could be tackled simultaneously if timed right. With a Wretched Graug, I stumbled upon Zumug Headhunter, hitting him with some projectile vomit, and then proceeded to eat him. Finally, I faced the last war chief.
I'll tear you apart for what you've done!
He put up a fight, even killing me at one point, but once I summoned a Graug, he didn't stand a chance and was swiftly defeated. With all the war chiefs down, that wrapped up the first DLC for Shadow of Mordor. But wait, where's the achievement? This was yet another achievement with a delay, and I started to panic, thinking I'd have to replay the entire DLC. At this point, I seriously considered switching over to my PlayStation, but just as I was researching my options, the achievement finally popped 5 minutes later. While Lord of the Hunt was a fun time, the Bright Lord dives deeper into one of the game's key characters, Celebrimbor. Set thousands of years before the main story, we take control of him, tasked with raising an army to challenge Sauron. It's very familiar to the final act of the base game, but serves as a decent excuse to step into Celebrimbor's shoes. He plays similarly to Talion with a few tweaks. There's no focus for bow shots, but comes with the added ability to shadow brand enemies. The DLC introduces this ability right away, with one of my first objectives being to brand Uruks. While I only needed 12, I went on to brand a total of 20 to grab an achievement. With a small army of Uruks and a captain under my control, my mission to challenge the Dark Lord of Mordor had officially begun.
Erect a monolith for your bright lord in defiance of the shadow!
My main objective was to brand all 5 war chiefs in Udin, but first I had to restore all the forge towers. It sounds boring doing them again, but the DLC spices things up by adding objectives to each tower, like branding Uruks without being detected, or maintaining an army for a set amount of time. There were only 4 towers, so it didn't take long to complete. Along the way, I faced hordes of Uruks, and after using my Wraith Blast to dominate 50 of them, I secured another achievement. As I began my quest, I unlocked more achievements along the way. I managed to brand 20 Uruks in under 60 seconds, and stealth branded a captain, though this was tougher than expected. Finding a captain with a vulnerability to stealth branding was tricky, and after taking down way too many captains, I encountered Luga the Vile. Close to defeat, I activated the ring and managed to stealth brand him. However, it would be another 2 minutes before the achievement popped. Speaking of the One Ring, it plays a significant role in the DLC. Branding a sufficient number of Uruks powers the ring, granting invisibility and allowing unlimited combat finishers for a short duration. Like Lord of the Hunt, there are 4 side missions, this time designed to increase the ring's duration. Each mission revolves around branding, and it was quick to complete, taking no more than 15 minutes. With the war chiefs branded, it was time to face Sauron. Unlike the lackluster final boss in the story, this confrontation is much more engaging. With the ring at full power, I quickly drained Sauron's health by chaining execution moves. Just when I thought the fight was over, in a twist, Sauron turned my branded war chiefs against me. Now, I had to fight all 5 of them. It was a tough battle, but by using my ring at the right time, I was able to defeat them. After a final clash with Sauron, it looks like we've won, until the ring lands on his finger, leading to Celebrimbor's tragic defeat and the beginning of his bond with Talion.
Finally, all will fear me and rejoice.
Before wrapping up, there is one final set of DLC to conquer, and it proved to be the biggest challenge yet. The Trials of War are challenge maps designed to test your combat and stealth skills, focusing solely on the Nemesis System. The primary goal is to kill war chiefs and captains to earn a spot on the leaderboards. However, to unlock the achievements I was after, I needed to qualify for the Elite leaderboard, which meant completing all the bonus objectives. While some were straightforward, the time limit proved to be the most difficult, ruining many of my runs. The 2 trials I had to complete were Test of the Wild and Test of the Ring. Starting with Test of the Ring, we take control of Celebrimbor in the same setting as the Bright Lord DLC. Along with the main objectives, I had to unlock an additional achievement by earning a level 30 rune. The most common method I read required a war chief to kill me, turning him into a revenge target. After that, I went back and let my branded Uruks deliver the final blow, guaranteeing a level 30 rune. However, it was another 2-minute wait until the achievement popped. Fortunately, this was the last delayed achievement I had to deal with. With my focus solely on the trial, I devised a strategy to complete all the objectives within 60 minutes. I needed to kill 5 war chiefs and 12 captains, all while branding 8 captains or war chiefs and 50 grunts. Branding Uruks wasn't too difficult since I encountered plenty while fighting captains and war chiefs. However, branding captains took more time, and on my first attempt, I still had a lot to get done, so I started another run. My second attempt was going better, but by the 30-minute mark, I was still behind. I did start another run when I remembered that I began with 5 branded Uruks that I could use for intel instead of hunting random ones. Then I rode a grog around taking out captains until I hit the required 12 kills. I carefully branded 8 captains and 50 Uruks, completing both bonus objectives. With 22 minutes left, this gave me enough time to focus on the war chiefs. Of course, I saved the hardest one for last, Skak the raid leader. To draw him out, I needed to kill 20 Uruks without taking damage. This challenge was trickier than expected, and before I knew it, my hour was almost up. Tired and frustrated, I decided to pick it up the next day. On this last attempt, I made sure to target Skak first, and with him out of the way, I finished the trial with 6.5 minutes to spare. Now for the ultimate challenge, Test of the Wild. I had to kill 5 war chiefs, all 20 captains, earn 13,000 points, and kill 10 captains with monsters, all within 40 minutes. I didn't have much of a plan going in, so I spent the early stages gathering intel and searching for a grog to knock out the monster kills. But by the 27-minute mark, no war chiefs were killed, and I was nowhere near the 13,000 point requirement. I gave it a few more tries, getting closer, but always falling short. To improve my chances, I started using death threats to raise captains' power levels, which granted me more points upon their defeat. I also made sure to brand one war chief from the start to avoid wasting time on other war chief missions. Uga Kuga was arguably the easiest to brand and came with a ton of health. With this strategy, I did run into a few setbacks, one involving Zugor killing my branded war chief with explosive arrows. I did brand Zugor, but when I went after Shagflak, he didn't stand a chance as that war chief was invulnerable to pretty much everything. At this point, the run was done, so I started another, which was unfortunately put to an end when I ran out of time again. At this point, I was incredibly defeated and just cut the game off to give myself some space. Coming back to it the next day, I locked in. It was a slow start as I only had 11 captains killed by the 23-minute mark. But then things picked up. I was cutting it pretty close with only 2 war chiefs killed, and my heart was beating out of my chest. I had to be quick with these riots, and luckily I saved some of the easier war chiefs for last. With time almost out, I started one final riot with Thrak. I defeated him with roughly 90 seconds left, and I killed my branded war chief, finally finishing this grueling challenge and unlocking the rarest achievement in the game. But there was one final achievement that almost stood between me and a perfect gamer score. As many of you likely know, one of the most infamous achievements in Shadow of Mordor is White Rider. For this, I had to liberate 30 slaves within 180 seconds while riding a Caragor. Let me just say, I don't think this achievement is particularly hard. It requires extreme precision and timing, sure, but it's honestly manageable if you know what you're doing. When I had the opportunity to work on this, it took a couple of runs, but I felt that I hit the goal pretty quickly. However, the achievements didn't pop. I thought maybe another run could do the trick. Nothing. Another try. Still no luck. I was confused because I knew I was doing everything right. Returning the next day, the achievements refused to pop no matter what I did. I even edited a run where I knew I liberated 30 slaves and posted it on Reddit. Reddit! I got a response, but sadly, it didn't work. I was starting to lose it. After some research, I discovered the unfortunate truth that this achievement had become bugged on my save file. Apparently, I wasn't the only one either, as other players had experienced this issue. The cause? It seemed to be tied to Xbox's reliance on internet connectivity for many of its main features, which is likely the reason for the delayed achievements as well. I searched for a solution, and the only option left was to delete my save file, disconnect from the internet, fulfill the achievement requirements, and then reconnect to the internet, hoping it would unlock. I would have done this on the spot, but to my knowledge, there's no way to back up Xbox save files to a thumb drive, only to the cloud. I was roughly halfway through the story when I encountered this issue, so I continued playing the rest of the game, hoping the method would work when I was ready. After finishing the other 73 achievements, I said goodbye to my 45-hour save file, turned off the Wi-Fi, and booted the game from scratch. Fortunately, I could jump straight into Lord of the Hunt, where everything was fully upgraded and I had access to a Caragor right away. After completing the brief intro, I mounted a Caragor and followed my usual route to free the slaves. I liberated more than enough within the time limit, turned the Wi-Fi back on, and finally received the notification on my phone. The achievement unlocked. The method worked. After hours of running the same route over and over, the White Rider achievement was mine, and after 45 hours, Shadow of Mordor was 100% complete. The road to 100% Shadow of Mordor was full of numerous ups and downs, but in the end, I enjoyed my time in Middle-earth. Revisiting this game a decade later, I still think it holds up well. While the story is on the weaker side, everything else surrounding it is top-notch. The combat, although stiff at first, soon became incredibly satisfying with every Uruk slain, and the Nemesis system was as brilliant as I remembered. The way the captains and war chiefs dynamically evolved with each encounter kept me coming back, feeling the stories I created while exploring the world. Though the Xbox ecosystem caused more headaches than I would have liked, and a few DLC achievements were tough to unlock, none of that detracted from how great this game is. Shadow of Mordor was one of the best games of 2014, and revisiting it all these years later, I fully understand why. I had an absolute blast with one of my favorite games from the last gen, and I can't wait to see how things have expanded when I eventually dive back into Shadow of War.